they're Googling, why don't I look like the women I see online? Or what does it mean if I don't have this type of chest size? All these things. And what they're finding out is maybe they're a boy, which is what the gender activists are telling them online. And so when they see this type of content and they're starting to get exposed to it and they go down the rabbit hole, it's just too easy for these activists to say, oh, you feel lonely at school, you don't fit in, you don't like going through puberty, you're stressed about, having a period. Oh, it's because you actually shouldn't be a girl, you're in the wrong body. And it might sound kind of fanciful to some of us or far-fetched, but unfortunately, this is happening, and this is a fact pattern that I saw in multiple girls that I talked to.
Is radical gender ideology dying in America? Is this the turn we've all been waiting for? Are the same people going to take back control of our culture, or are we going to acquiesce to the insanity? Are we going to allow this crazy gender ideology virus to grow and just spread like some kind of plague on our world, on our life, for our children? And the reason why I'm saying this is because we have never, I don't believe, in the history of humankind, experienced the kind of bizarre behavior that we are watching when it comes to this. Children being butchered at doctors' offices, having puberty blockers given to them, having mastectomies before they even can imagine going out on a date. I mean, what kind of insanity is this? And now, thankfully, there are brave young women and men who are talking about what has happened to them, how they have been used as guinea pigs by insane adults and these crazy radical doctors who have lied to them, lied to their parents, lied to you. And if you think this doesn't have anything to do with you, oh boy, you better wake up. These crazy radicals are targeting your children. They are targeting them on Instagram. They are targeting them on TikTok. They are targeting them at school. They are grooming them to think the way that they think. Misery loves company, right? They want to take your children when they are at their most vulnerable. They want to rob them of their childhood, of their spirit, of their identity, of their humanity. And they want to reinforce that insanity on others. They want to do it. And they're doing so like a cult. That's what they are. And I have this amazing guest who has done so much work on this, a journalist who truly, truly cares about what is happening in this country and wanting to give a voice to those who had no voice when they were reaching out for help and these monsters grabbed hold of them. But things are changing. And that's not just my opinion. It's actually backed up by data from the Pew Research poll. Let me go and read this to you really quick before we get to our guest, because I think this is very important. Here is the critical line from the latest Pew Research poll. The share of voters who say that sex at birth determines whether someone is a man or a woman has increased since 2017. And this increase has occurred within both parties. So here you go. Democrat, Republicans feeling the same. In 2017, 53% of voters said sex assigned at birth determines gender. 65% express this view today. Good signs. Americans are increasingly done with pretending that men can become women and that women can become men. And I'm done with a culture trying to mainstream this radical ideology onto my daughter, onto your children, onto our children. I'm sick of it. I want it to stop. But like always, I mean, I think the theme of the Sarah Carter show is if we don't speak up, if we don't speak out, then they win. On the show today, I'm sitting down with a journalist who has interviewed members of the Detrans movement. So she's actually sat down with people who have transitioned and then they are detransitioning. They are going back to who they were. And the stories that they shared with her are gut-wrenching, and they are a warning to each and every one of us. And I think as parents, and if you have a loved one who has a child, or if you have grandchildren, you need to pay attention because they are grooming our children in our homes, right under our noses, right in front of us as our kids are on their phones, in Instagram, in TikTok, in all of these apps. They're doing it right in our face. And for the most part, parents are letting them because we are ignorant of how far these people are going. So she interviewed the people in the Detrans movement, meaning people who have undergone surgery to transition, and cataloged their stories of pain and regret. It's a powerful conversation. I'm so grateful to share it with you. But first, My Pillow and Mike Lindell, folks. You know how I love Mike Lindell. I want to thank him. Thank you, Mike, for supporting the Sarah Carter show and for all you do for our country. And since you first launched My Pillow, your company has been amazing. You have done things that no one else could have ever imagined. It first started out with pillows, but now it's expanded to include offerings, hundreds of products, folks, not just pillows, but hundreds of products. Just right below me at my feet is Macy Dacey, and she is laying on her My Pillow dog bed, right? In the other house is Danny, the guide dog, laying on his large My Pillow dog bed. We have sheets, we have slippers, we have towels. We have all My Pillow products in our house. Why? Because we support somebody who supports patriots. And that's what we do. And right now you can save. Listen to this offer. If you use promo code Carter, CARTER at mypillow.com to get the sale price and free shipping on your order over $75. And here's some of the products that Mike has made available for just $25. Listen to this. 2-pack of My Pillows? No way. $25. My Pillow sandals, luxurious 6-pack towel sets, the brand new 4-pack dish towels. Like I said, the small dog beds and beach towels. Use code Carter, CARTER. Giza Dream bed sheets right now, queen size, only $59.98 with promo code. 60% off my slippers. Promo code Carter. Go to mypillow.com or call 800-685-7221 today to get in on the $25 extravaganza today. Be sure to use code Carter to get the sale price and free shipping on your order over $75. Call 1-800-685-7221 or go to mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Again, mypillow.com, promo code Carter. I've got Mary Margaret Olohan on the show today. She is a senior reporter covering culture and politics for the Daily Signal. She previously wrote for the Daily Wire. I've been following her career and the Daily Caller News Foundation. She is the author of a brand new book through Regnery. It's called Detrans, True Stories of Escaping the Gender Ideology Cult. And wow, what a powerful, powerful title for this book, Mary Margaret. That is just, and that's the way I see it. I mean, and a lot of people that I talk to, it's this gender ideology cult. We would have never seen this even just 10 years ago or 12 years ago, the way it is today. Talk a little bit about that headline first, coming up with that title for the book.
Yeah. So first of all, I knew I wanted to call it Detrans because that is the name of a Reddit forum where all of these detransitioners started finding each other. And it was something that I would hear about, when I was covering this, and I would go look for stories on there. And I was just blown away by all of these different stories of people explaining. I went down this path this really hurt me. I wish I didn't do it. I didn't know that there was anyone else out there. And it was kind of this amazing Reddit thread of people finding each other and being able to share that they deeply regretted their gender transition. And until that forum, there hadn't really been a place for detransitioners to find other people. And a lot of them thought that they didn't exist. So, that definitely inspired me to title the book with that. But then also when it comes to the gender ideology cult language, I wondered if that was too far. And I asked the detransitioners who were in my book, I asked a couple of them, what do you think? Do you feel like this is too much? And they were thoughtful about it. And they said, no, actually, we feel like the word cult does work in this context. And I agree with them that
talk about that.
Talk
about that cult, because a cult is, these are people that are basically buying into an idea that was not their own to begin with. And it's almost like brainwashing, right? It's brainwashing them to believe that there's something they're not, or that the world is something it's not.
And I think a lot of the ways that these young people are sucked into all of this is very reminiscent of a cult. For example, they're finding out about this online where they're being recruited by adults who are making it their mission to find young people and say, yeah, you actually are in the wrong body. Like, you should transition to become a boy, or you should transition to become a girl. So these adults are recruiting young people, trying to find them. Some might say grooming them to follow this path, and then they're love bombing them. They're telling them they're amazing. They're like so brave. They're persecuted. They're a victim because they identify as transgender. And that is like the, newest victim class. And a lot of these young people are just straight white females who have no, they don't have anything about them that they feel makes them special. Of course, that's not true about them at the end of the day. We're all uniquely and wonderfully made, and there's like every human being is created with dignity and is special in their own way. But a lot of these young people just don't know that and have no sense of who they are or why they're even on this earth. And so when they're singled out by these individuals, they feel, okay, I could become someone. If I become this transgender person, suddenly I'm part of this victim class, I'm persecuted, and I'm special. And so they go down this route. And it's very cult-like in the way that these members, the new members of the gender ideology cult, these young people are told, if someone tells you you shouldn't transition, they hate you and they want you dead. Stay away from anyone that tells you that you shouldn't transition. If your parents tell you that you shouldn't transition, or if they won't help you, we'll help you get away from them. A lot of rhetoric to this effect, just cutting people off willy-nilly, even the people who gave you life. If they dissent whatsoever from the gender ideology narrative, they're dead to you. And then you also see the cult-like aspects in the way that these people are rejected once they realize that this has all been a lie. So if they try and speak out and say, I really regret this gender transition, or even the bare minimum, I don't feel better. I don't feel like I'm a man. I don't think I actually transitioned. That's enough to get you expelled from this so-called cult. There's so much hate and vitriol and backlash that comes with saying anything that dissents from the narrative. And so, I thought about this wording because I wanted people to take this book seriously. I wanted them to understand the realities of what was going on. And at the end of the day, I thought, nope, this has enough similarities to a cult that we can accurately and fairly use that word.
Absolutely. And I love the way that you were able to describe this idea of how when they're grooming these, and I want to get into the grooming part, but when they're grooming those that are confused or that are looking for, friendship or for someone to pay attention to them, and God only knows what's going on inside them, that they immediately start making them feel special and then telling them what to do and eventually shutting the rest of the world out. Are they being recruited online? Are they being groomed online? Is it their teachers at school? We hear about that all the time, like teachers that are saying, you can come to me, you don't have to go to your parents. Where do you see this mainly happening so that as parents, we can be aware of this?
Yeah, I think the first thing that parents should be aware of is that it's not explicitly gender content that's starting kids down this path. So for a lot of the younger girls I talk to, they were on social media when they were first exposed to this type of thing. But what really got them on the road to it was, for example, young girls getting on social media too early. So let's just say Chloe Cole, one of the girls in the book, she tells me that she got on Instagram around 12 or 13 years old, and she's instantly bombarded with all of these images of what womanhood is. And keep in mind, she's a teenager trying to figure out who she wants to be, what she wants to look like, what a woman is. So she's seeing all these really aggressive depictions of femininity, all these perfectly sculpted women with hundreds of thousands of followers, getting tons of male affirmation. And she's thinking, I don't look anything like that. So that's part of it. She's looking at them and thinking, I don't know how to look like that. I don't look anything like that. At the same time, all of these girls I talked to told me they were exposed to pornography at a really young age. And so they're seeing in pornography women being degraded and humiliated, and they're thinking, that doesn't look fun. They told me it looks fun for the guys, doesn't look fun for the girls, looks scary. So on the one hand, they're thinking sexual intimacy as a woman looks not like something they want to be part of. And on the other hand, they're thinking, I don't look anything like these women who are supposedly the standard of what a woman should look like. So they're wondering, where do I fit in this spectrum? And it's kind of the perfect place for when the gender ideologists come along and they're seeing this content online. They're Googling, why don't I look like the women I see online? Or what does it mean if I don't have this type of chest size? All these things. And what they're finding out is maybe they're a boy, which is what the gender activists are telling them online. And so when they see this type of content and they're starting to get exposed to it and they go down the rabbit hole, it's just too easy for these activists to say, oh, you feel lonely at school, you don't fit in, you don't like going through puberty, you're stressed about, having a period. Oh, it's because you actually shouldn't be a girl, you're in the wrong body. And it might sound kind of fanciful to some of us or far-fetched, but unfortunately this is happening, and this is a fact pattern that I saw in multiple girls that I talked to. And at the same
And that's like a normal thing. Like all young girls going through puberty are kind of like, I didn't know one of them, even me, like when I was young, it was like, nobody wanted to go through it. Everyone was like, what am I doing? We wanted to be the kid that we were before. And then we transition into womanhood, and then we're good.
Exactly.
I mean, it's everybody goes through this stress. It isn't, and the fact that these children don't really know that don't really understand that, and that predators are using that against them is really terrifying.
It is. And I think that it's something that not a lot of people remember. And I mean, you could probably say this about a lot of things. A lot of adults don't remember what it was like to be a kid, but especially with social media, I don't think a lot of us remember what it's like to be a kid or put ourselves in the situation of what it's like to be a kid in the age of the internet. These are forces of nature that we already know are very detrimental to kids. But when it comes to masculinity and femininity and identity and gender ideology, this is very dangerous. And when kids are in this formative stage of life, it needs a lot more supervision than they're getting. So Abel Garcia, for example, is one of the boys in my book. He told me that just from the depictions of masculinity he was seeing, he felt like he couldn't live up to these depictions of masculinity. And he thought, okay, well, if I can't be the best, I can't be this macho guy that I'm supposed to be, why would I do it at all? And for all of these kids, they're thinking that puberty is something that they alone are struggling with. And I think they're not to be blamed for thinking that, because if you look at social media nowadays, all of these young girls are so good at their appearance. And it does seem as though if you're awkward or if you're not good at doing yourself up, you may be the odd one out. We see.
Oh, I would have been definitely the odd one out. I'm like, I go back. I'm like so grateful that I came from a time where there was no internet when I was a kid, and that 80s hair that I had, this giant. My kids make fun of it. They're like, what in the world happened to your hair in the 80s, Mom? What was going
I
on
love
there?
it.
I'm like, that's the one picture that will never hopefully make the internet. But I mean, it's a lot of stress. It's a lot of stress. It was a lot of stress back
Yeah.
then. Now my youngest is 11, so I get it. I get it. It's hard, kids trying to fit
Right.
in, trying to have, the right friends, wondering where they fit in, wondering what the future is going to hold for
Yeah.
them. You talk to so many young people for this book. I mean, did you get an idea of when most of them made the decision? Like, what age were they when they decided to get the surgery? And then who allowed them to do it? Was it their parents? Were their parents wrapped into the cult because they wanted their children to love them? What
Yeah, so
happened?
this is something really interesting that I think a lot of people don't fully understand the role that parents play in this. So all the detransitioners who are in my book, almost all of them, I think only one was a legal adult. So almost all the detransitioners in my book were minors and needed to get parental permission for some of these procedures. And I think a lot of us, when we think of this issue, we think of crazy parents who are transitioning their kids on purpose and posting about it on social media. Those are the ones that really like stick out in the news. And those people definitely exist, and they're doing this for evil and I would say selfish and narcissistic reasons, namely to promote themselves by saying they have a trans kid. But I think in general, what is going on here is you'll have a kid like Chloe Cole. She's, in her early teens, and she goes to her parents and says, I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. And I need to get these hormones and surgeries, or I'm going to, things aren't going to go well for me. And the parents love their daughter and they think, our beautiful baby girl wants to get a double mastectomy. That doesn't make any sense to us. So they say, okay, listen, we're going to go talk to some doctors and they'll tell us what you should do. And unfortunately, our medical professionals are absolutely betraying parents, because what will happen is the parents take their daughter to see a therapist, or they take her to see an endocrinologist or a doctor, and they'll say, she thinks she's a boy. What should we do? And across the board, what is happening now, like almost across the board, is these medical professionals, so-called, will say, yep, your daughter, if she identifies as a boy, then she's a boy. You have to affirm her, or else she will hurt herself and might even kill herself. And the exact line that they give to parents, and I get chills every time I say this, is, would you rather have a dead daughter or a living son? That is the exact line that they give them. And it's a threat. It's a threat saying, if you do not comply with gender ideology, your kid will die and it will be your fault. And it's more than that. It's not just your kid will die, it's your kid will be killed. And the implication is you will have killed your kid. And I think that parents, many of the parents who hear this, they would rather, they would lay down their life for their kid. So they're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want anything to happen to my child. We should do what they're telling us, even though they think this is wrong, this is crazy. But they don't go with their gut. They trust the medical professionals. And in the cases of the detransitioners in my book, at a certain point, they're going to have a conversation with their child where their child says, you were right. We shouldn't have done this. But now I don't have breasts. I might be infertile. I have all these complications. And it's because these medical professionals told us that this would make me happy, which is the lie.
Do they have recourse? Do they have recourse to sue these medical professionals? And when did they know? When did the people who went through these when did they know that it was a mistake?
Yeah.
When they went through the transition, was it years later? Was it a year later? Because this is almost as if we're butchering our children.
Yeah.
We are butchering our children and allowing our children to be butchered for some kind of insanity, some kind of crazy ideology that wants to erase who we are as people.
Exactly. And I think that, I used to wonder if butchering was too strong a word, but if you look at what has happened to these young people, and if you read my book, you'll hear about it in kind of graphic detail. what is happening here is these doctors and therapists are putting kids on puberty blockers, which puberty blockers stop puberty. So for a little kid, boys and girls, this can mean that their genitals just don't grow. For boys especially, it can cause them to become infertile. In fact, has caused many young kids to become infertile. And keep in mind, these kids don't know if they want to have kids one day. They have no idea. They don't even know, they're making decisions about sexual preference before they've ever held hands with someone of the opposite sex, before they've ever kissed anyone. They have no idea what their sexual preferences are. And frankly, it's a very inappropriate thing to be asking a child what your sexual preferences are in the first place. But all of this is being pushed on them. And then, once they get past the puberty blockers, the next step is testosterone for girls or estrogen for guys. And I document in the book, all these detransitioners explain to me the crazy side effects that these drugs have on their bodies. The girls, for example, when they take testosterone, their muscles change, their bone density changes, they lose hair in certain places, they grow hair in other places. On the emotional side, they experience these really intense rage attacks that they just must externalize. So one girl told me that she had to punch things and she was covered in bruises because she just had to externalize this rage. They also lose the ability to cry in a lot of cases. So they'll feel this really strong urge to cry, but then just nothing happens. And then for some girls, and I think this is really scary to us as women, because we often have dreams where we try and scream and nothing comes out. For a lot of these girls, they lose the ability to scream. So they're kind of living a nightmare that many of us have, where you try and open your mouth to get help or to, warn someone of something and nothing happens. And those are just some of.
Are they warned by the doctors of all of these horrific side effects? No. And what will happen to them?
No, not at all. They're given like a short list of side effects, like, it could cause this, it could cause that. They're not explained at all in full detail. And part of the reason for this is because the so-called experts that are weighing in on all this and telling these young people to take these drugs, they don't actually know what all the side effects are because they're experimental. And that's something that we've been learning more and more about recently is these drugs are incredibly experimental, incredibly dangerous.
How expensive are they? How much money are people making off of these drugs and pharma?
They're incredibly expensive. And something that people don't really realize is it's not like you just take them and then you're done. You're supposed to take them for the rest of your life. So you're getting on, let's say you get on a subscription, and I document this in the book. There's one subscription service called Folks, I think, Folx, and they have shipments that they'll send you of the drugs. And I want to say it's something like $80 for testosterone for maybe like a 2-month supply. I should double check that. But that's, it's reoccurring for the rest of your life. Like that is one heck of a reoccurring shipment. And then when it comes to surgeries, this is just a whole, this is probably the most graphic and upsetting part of this whole story is that for the girls, they start with a double mastectomy. And in some cases, some of these girls are so mentally ill that they don't understand, mentally ill or naive or both. They don't understand that when they get a double mastectomy, their breasts aren't going to grow back. But some of these girls think that because they're so young and naive. And there's been cases of girls saying to doctors, so wait, when are they going to grow back? They didn't understand that this is forever. And they're losing the ability to nurse their own kids. And many of them have never even thought about whether they wanted to have kids, whether they wanted to get married. These are decisions that are all being made before they've gone down this path mentally. And so they undergo a double mastectomy. But that's not the end of it. If it were up to the gender ideologists, they would say, okay, next stop is getting a hysterectomy, get your uterus removed. Next stop is creating a fake male genitalia on you, which is incredibly invasive and disgusting. And they, in some cases, use your different parts of your body to create a fake penis. And for the men, it's even more invasive and disgusting. And I won't get too graphic on here, but I'll just say they're trying to.
Oh, you can.
Well,
I mean, look, I don't have a problem with it because I think people need to know the truth. And it's weird. It's hard for people to say this, but I have, and I know what you're going to say, because there have been people that have been suffering through infection after infection after
Yeah.
infection because of these transitions. And I'm sitting here thinking right now, what will the world look like 50 years from now? Hopefully we'll have more common sense then. I hope we don't go further down this rabbit hole, but people will look back and be like, these doctors were butchers and these parents were complete idiots for allowing I mean, it's just the way society is now is so upside down. I mean, and you said something that triggered an idea I think you should write for a second book, and that is experimentation. And this feels like we are being experimented on by some very sadistic doctors and pharma companies that think they can do whatever they want under the guise of this new woke agenda. And that's pretty terrifying.
Absolutely.
What about pregnant women that have transitioned to be a man and now they want to have a baby and they don't have breasts and they have beards? I mean, are they taking hormones while they're pregnant? What happens to the fetus? I mean, there's so many questions I have.
Well, it creates this crazy, crazy loony world where, yes, you do have women who think they're men, but they're taking testosterone. So they have facial hair. They have all these really crazy mental health side effects, but some of them can still get pregnant. And so then they are, in fact, pregnant and they're giving birth. And then you have organizations like Planned Parenthood saying, men can get pregnant. Well, no, they can't. Women can get pregnant, but these women think that they're men. And so then there's all kinds of confusion and this weird messaging. And then you have men who are actually men, who identify as women, who are trying to nurse babies. They don't have the ability to nurse, and they're forcing babies to suck on their nipples, fake nipples in a lot of cases, and to consume whatever strange, weird substance is coming out of their nipples, not breast milk, which I think I and many others would say is child abuse. But when you have situations like this, we're going so far off into loony land that it's hard to see what will cause us to stop. And I will say, when it comes to the medical professionals, I have heard and been told by multiple doctors and people in the medical world that in the medical institutions nowadays, our next generation of doctors are being taught to prioritize gender ideology over facts and science. And I think we should be very scared by that, because what that means is they're being taught to pretend certain things are real or true or happening when they are not real or true or happening at all. And, these are people who theoretically are making promises to do no harm, to treat people, to heal people, but then we're taught that they're supposed to heal people, and then you see what they do to these men in surgical situations where a man is very mentally ill, says that he's a woman, says that he needs a genital surgeries, and so they carve a fake hole in him to pretend that it's a vagina. And they carve this fake hole in him. His body knows. His body is created to heal itself, right? All of our bodies are. So his body tries to close that hole because it knows this is very wrong. There's something very weird here. And so the doctors tell him, make sure you clean it and keep it open and dilate it every single day so that it stays open, so that you can pretend that you're a woman and you can experience some kind of faux feminine sexual intimacy with someone else. And I cannot tell you, I had to report on a story of a woman who was imprisoned with a man who identified as a woman, who had undergone this surgery and was dilating himself in the bunk bed underneath her every day. And it is one of the most horrible and graphic stories I've ever written, and really disgusting. But this is the kind of thing that doctors are performing on people nowadays. And just that surgery, we should be able to look at that and say, that is not healing someone. In fact, that is very much hurting someone who is already mentally ill, who needs help. And we're performing this because we want to pretend something. Like, where's the science there? Where's the help, not harm there? It doesn't make any sense.
Are you concerned about the endless flood of illegal immigration at the southern border? How about the $1 trillion being added to the debt every 100 days? It's no wonder thousands of hardworking, patriotic Americans, including myself, are learning how to protect and diversify their retirement savings with precious metals. That's why I've partnered with the top-rated company Goldco. I want you to take a listen to this current offer. Get a free 2024 wealth protection kit and learn how to possibly get $10,000 in bonus silver as a listener of this show while supplies last. Protect your family's financial future and freedom. Get started today at Sara, S-A-R-A, likesgold.com or call 855-823-GOLD. Get your free gold kit from Goldco and learn how to get $10,000 in bonus silver. Sara, S-A-R-A, likesgold.com or 855-823-4653. That's Sara, S-A-R-A, likesgold.com or call 855-823-GOLD. Look, a biological man just won the Miss Maryland USA pageant. So crazy. I mean, everybody went crazy for him. And it's like we're reinforcing the lie. It's like somebody who is mentally ill, we're reinforcing the lie. Why are we doing this? What kind of answers did the people who you interviewed, I'm sure you asked, gave you when you asked that question?
So many of them told me that the people who were telling them these lies and, pushing them down this path were gender ideologists themselves, or they had completely subscribed to this ideology, the doctors and the therapists. And I think something that is worth mentioning is that when these young people are going through these transitions, they very much try and surround themselves with people who agree with them, who are affirming this, who are saying, yes, you're amazing, you're beautiful, you're persecuted, you deserve anything and everything. Stay away from anyone who criticizes you for this lifestyle. So they're very much surrounded with people who are affirming these life choices. And many of them don't come in contact with anyone who has said, this is wrong for you, this is going to hurt you, like a detransitioner. And the modern...
Yeah, well, who does that? Like, let's say I'm a child. Is it the parents? They go to the parents and they say, you know what? I'm in pain. I don't like what I've done to my body. It was a mistake. Yeah. And where do they go to get help? I mean, who can they reach out to?
Well, that's a huge problem nowadays because, first of all, the detransitioners who spoke up now and the ones that are in my book, they didn't have anyone to speak up for them when they were going through this. So, they were looking for people like the people they are now who were saying, I went through this was horrible, I really suffered from it. They didn't have anyone saying that. So that's part of the reason they become advocates, because they know those people are so needed. But they told me, and when I say they, I mean like Chloe, Luca, Prisha, Abel, Helena, those are the people I really focused on in this book. They said that once they decided to detransition, aka they got to this point in their lives where they realized, oh my gosh, I was promised that I would feel better when I got to this point, after I had undergone these surgeries, after I'd taken these hormones, and I don't feel better. In fact, I feel worse. And they had this kind of moment where they were like, wait, was I lied to? And then it all kind of unraveled from there. So once they realize, okay, I got to stop taking these hormones, they're making me insane, and they try and wean themselves off, and they go to the doctor and say, hey, I need help. I don't know what to do now. I thought I was a boy, but I'm not. And I've been taking all these things and they've messed me up. What do I do? And the doctors, if they're nice enough, they say, we have no idea, because they truly don't have any idea. And what they'll say, in one case, a doctor told one of the detransitioners in my book, this is just part of your gender journey. And he was so insulted. that's what would be said to him after all the trust he placed in these medical professionals, all of the suffering he had experienced, and he just got a flippant, this is just part of your gender journey. And that's,
Has anyone sued? Has anyone sued the doctors? I mean, because
yes.
look, if you're a minor, and I've heard of lawsuits, I don't know if any of the ones you interviewed, people that have transitioned sued, but if you're a minor and the doctor is telling your parents, like, your child, you will kill your child if you don't go through this butchering surgery. And all of this happens. And then they wake up one day and go, what happened to my childhood? Where's my body? What's going on
Yeah.
here? What can they do? I mean, are they suing? Are they
Well,
winning?
thankfully, yes, some of them are suing. And Harmeet Dillon is representing Chloe Cole. She's representing a number of other detransitioners. She's amazing. She's a warrior for the truth. And Campbell Miller Payne is another law firm that is representing Prisha and a couple other detransitioners. And those lawsuits are amazing. They name and shame the medical professionals, the doctors, the medical organizations that did this to these young people. And they say specifically, for example, Kaiser Permanente did not fully give Chloe Cole all of the information she should have known before she embarked on this journey. They didn't give her parents all the information they should have known to fully give informed consent for these types of things. And they're suing and saying, in public, this is what was done to our daughter, and it was done by these doctors in this medical organization. So I think those were huge. I think that they absolutely can be part of the reason that the tide is turning on gender ideology. And also, a point for hope is all over the country, Republican lawmakers have been passing legislation protecting kids
Right.
from this type of thing. A lot of the time it's called the SAFE Act. I think it's Save Our Adolescents from Experimentation Act, and that legislation is amazing. But I think the number one thing that is really the most powerful weapon here is these stories of the detransitioners themselves, because the
Right.
left is all about empathy. They say that they are all about empathy. It's all of their messaging. That's the way they operate. They say, we care about people, or we want to defend people. Well, these detransitioners really did live these stories. They went down this path. It was absolutely excruciating for them, both mentally and physically. Thankfully, they lived to tell the tale, and now they are. And so people should pay attention to them and understand that their stories are probably the greatest refutation of gender ideology that there is. And that's why I wrote this book, because I thought, I just want to get their stories out there. I want to help people understand the realities of gender ideology, and to give a platform to these people who have suffered so much and are now being brave enough to share their stories.
Well, Mary Margaret, your job as a journalist, and I've always said this, even when I've worked with young journalists in the past, is to be a voice for the voiceless, to be a voice for those who don't have a voice, and to tell their story. Just tell their story. Let people know what they're going through. And that's what you've done. I mean, this is really heartbreaking to see that so many young people have gone through this. I think the tide is turning. We know earlier this year, England's National Health Service stopped prescribing puberty blockers for transgender kids. And I think that's huge. I think you're making a huge difference in the world by speaking up and not being afraid to tell these stories. And you're standing up to a lot of very powerful people that for some reason, and I'm sure we can dissect that and figure out why, for some reason believe, and maybe you have the answer to this, believe that this is the direction humanity needs to take. My friend Gad Sad, who wrote the book, The Parasitic Mind, this is like a virus. This is like a parasite. It's a lie. Telling young children that they can be anything they want. And I don't know what we're going to do. I hope that the tide is changing. And I hope that by exposing the brutality of these surgeries, the tide is changing. As an expert in this now, what do you think needs to be done to ensure this? Should we pass it in every state, the SAFE Act? Should it be federalized? What are they working on now to make sure that we are headed in the right direction?
Well, I think first of all, we need to hear from more doctors on this issue. Dr. Etan Hine, who is in Texas, is a whistleblower from a Texas hospital who spoke out about all the realities of what was going on in this Texas hospital transing children. And now he's being targeted by the Department of Justice. And that is a really scary story that I think is underreported, where, you know, this guy is trying to speak up in defense of kids. One of the only medical professionals who has been brave enough to do this, and is now being targeted by the Department of Justice. So, you know, we need to be talking about these stories. We need to be encouraging doctors to do the right thing, to speak up for kids. And I think that sharing their stories, promoting them, but also just helping increase awareness. You know, Americans should be tuned into this issue because it could affect your kid. You know, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, well, you know, that's not something that would affect my kid. Yes, it is. There are people that want to target every kind of kid when it comes to this issue, even if you're a traditional or religious family. In fact, many of those families are the ones that are under the most scrutiny because gender ideologists often think that families that are Christian or traditional or religious are repressing their kids, and those kids might be trans and they should help them and help them discover their true identity. So if your child is on social media, if your child has a phone, parents need to be very aware that this is absolutely something that could affect your children. And, you know, vigilance is really required here. And I think parents, you know, even when it comes to making sure you know the types of kids that your kids are playing with, you know, you can be as careful as you want with your own children's technology, but when they go to a sleepover and they're with a bunch of other kids who have technology, well, you know, that's kind of out the window. So being aware of who your kids are hanging out with, who has phones, who has safeguards on their phones, all of these things are absolutely things that parents should be taking a close look at. And frankly, I might sound a little paranoid, but you really can't be too careful when it comes to social media and technology these days. Unfortunately, it's really out of your control in many ways. So the more particular parents are about this, the safer their kids are.
That's right. You're inviting predators into your child's bedroom when you don't supervise what they are doing on their phone. You're just allowing your children to be harmed and possibly eventually brutalized by strangers in your own house. That's how serious this is. Mary Margaret, thank you so much. Where can my listeners get your book, Detrans? I think everybody needs to read this book. Every single parent, everybody out there, read this book, gift this book, save your children from the insanity, what we are seeing right now. Where can they get it?
Thank you so much. They can get it on Amazon. You can find it on Simon & Schuster, Walmart, Target, hopefully wherever books are sold. And I'm so grateful to you, Sara, for having me on. This is a really great show, and I'm so glad I can share the message here.
Thank you again, Mary Margaret. You are always welcome to come on the Sara Carter Show. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, folks, give us a like and a follow as well. Please make sure you're subscribed to the Sara Carter Show on your favorite podcast app. I don't care if it's Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We really appreciate it. Remember, here at the Sara Carter Show, we are taking the story back. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on X at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless all our children and protect them from these horrific people that are trying to take them away from us and away from themselves. God bless our great nation, and God bless the great state of Texas.